Hello everyone, it is Dylan from Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything, and welcome back to a video that I've been working on for the better part of 2016. This is a theory that has probably been my most anticipated theory, and that is my theory about the Yu-Gi-Oh! Timeline. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Timeline, really after 5Ds, has been a crazy mess to figure out, but ladies and gentlemen, I really do believe I have solved, that's right, solved the Yu-Gi-Oh! Timeline jumble. Then again, this is just a theory, I could be totally wrong. Either way, I hope you guys enjoy my fourth formal theory video, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Timeline Explained. So before I get into my theory, I do want to say that I'm going to propose 3 different timelines during this video. I'm going to be spending most of the video talking about the first one and the one that I believe to be true, and then I will quickly cover the second and third ones at the end of the video. Hopefully you guys let me know which ones, if any of them, you agree with. So let's start with the first Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters, which first aired in Japan in the year 2000. So let's just begin this timeline for argument's sake at the year 2000. I know a lot of people and a lot of timelines begin in the 1990s, but just for simplicity, we're going to start during the year 2000. Simple enough. Then again, no one really disputes where Duel Monsters falls on the timeline. Now, how long did Duel Monsters last? Honestly, I don't know the exact number of years. I don't think anyone really does, but an educated guess, I would say it lasted maybe all of 2 or 3 years. None of the cast really aged, and a lot of the arcs that took place most likely did not last more than a week or two. So again, for argument's sake, Duel Monsters ends in the year 2002, with Atem leaving to go back to the spiritual world. 10 years later, we have Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. That is a number that has been confirmed by many, so there's no speculation there. 2012, Judai enters the Academy. The timeline is still pretty simple at this point. No one disputes that GX happened after Duel Monsters. We have cameos from Yugi himself, Seto Kaiba, the Paradox Brothers, and more. Judai goes to school for 4 years, and then GX concludes with him graduating and going on his own adventure. GX ends in the year 2015. Now here is where things get crazy. A lot of people say there is no way that 5Ds is only 20 or so years after the conclusion of GX, but that is the case. It has to be. The key to this factoid is this guy right here. If you watch the dub, you may know him as Tetsu or Officer Trudge. In the original, his name is Tetsu Ushio. How is he the key to linking 5Ds with Duel Monsters? Simple. He appeared in Duel Monsters. He is confirmed by the Yu-Gi-Oh! 10th Anniversary book to be the same character. Since he was in high school when he bullied Janucci, Honda, and Yugi, I would say he could probably be around the age of 15. Yes, he's a big guy for 15, but 15 years old for a high schooler is not out of the question by any means. And by the time 5Ds comes around, he could definitely pass for 45 or 50 years old, which would be in the year 2030 or 2035. Remember, GX ended in 2015, so let's just say he was 15 in Duel Monsters and 50-ish in 5Ds. Anyway, back on topic. I am proposing that 2 years after GX ends, in the year 2017, Zero Reverse takes place and Yusei is born. Just stay with me here. Yusei is 18 when 5Ds first starts, so 5Ds starts in the year 2035. Trudge would be exactly 50 years old, which is the age we just stated he could possibly be, so it makes sense there. A lot of people also take issue with how advanced the city looks in 5Ds, only 20 years after GX, but I am going to defend this. Think about how much technology advances even in our own time. Think about computers in 1996 compared to now. Heck, even cars. We have cars that can drive themselves in 2016. In 1996, that was something that was probably so futuristic it wasn't even imaginable. The city got pretty much wiped out in Zero Reverse, so they wouldn't build the city anew with old materials, right? They would use really good state-of-the-art equipment, which in turn leads to this crazy futuristic look. Let me tie this to a real-life example. Dubai, for instance, is the perfect example to fit here. One of the most beautiful countries in the world. Look at these pictures. This is comparing Dubai in the 1990s to current day. Still think it's crazy that 20 years is too little time for the city to look the way it does in 5Ds? Anyway, 5Ds ends in 2037, on a different timeline thanks to Yusei and the others. That's right, the original 5Ds timeline was doomed to be destroyed in another Zero Reverse incident 200 years later, according to Zone and Iliaster, who were from that timeline. By the way, Bonds Beyond Time takes place most likely in 2036 or 2037, before Yusei goes up to face Zone and Antinomy in the Arc Cradle. So hopefully everyone is still with me up to this point, because now it gets fun. Now we get the fourth show, known as Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal, and as I have said before, and I'll say it again, I do believe that Zexal, and Arc 5 for that matter, are canon to the first 3 Yu-Gi-Oh! Shows. The main reason for Zexal being canon? Well, take a look at this clip from episode 15 of the Zexal anime.
ブラックマジシャンブルーアイズホワイトドラゴン レッドアイズ、ネオス、ブラックマジシャンガールまで伝説のモンスターが勢揃いしてるぜ。すっげえ。
Well, not all the legendary monsters. Obviously, there are no signs of any monsters from Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. Even more so, there are no synchros in Zexal at all. But let me ask you, what is another major feature from 5Ds that is missing from Zexal? I know the immediate answer is synchro monsters, but how about riding duels? How about D-wheels? Why are all these major elements missing from Zexal? Another major thing absent from Zexal? Kaiba Corporation. That's right. Guess who is the major catalyst for this continuity timeline theory? Seto Kaiba. Geez, you would think I'd want to marry the guy with how often I bring him up in these theory videos. But all jokes aside, it is his fate and the fate of his company that splits the timeline in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Universe, with one timeline going down the 5Ds route and the other going down the Zexal route. Let me explain. About a year or two after GX ends, Kaiba Corporation starts working on a device called Momentum, or NRD in the dub. He hires 3 main developers, also known as the MIDS, or the Momentum Investigation and Development Section. The 2 assistants of the operation were Rex and Roman Godwin, with the main developer being Mr. Fudo, Yusei Fudo's father. But here is the kicker. Momentum is the main power source that supplies Neo Domino City, while allowing dual runners, turbo duels, and solid vision to take place. What are some things notably missing from Zexal? Synchros, dual runners, turbo duels, and solid vision. In Zexal we have something called augmented reality, which is similar to solid vision, but is not solid vision. So this is what I am proposing. The NRD, Momentum, could not have been built in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal timeline. Now it would be easy to say, well, Zexal is just not canon, simple as that, but that scene I just showed you, with all the statues of the dual monsters and GX monsters, you want to chalk that up to coincidence? I actually think it's harder to prove that Zexal is not canon to dual monsters in GX. Right after Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, I propose that something happened to Kaiba Corp or Seto Kaiba. This is the core of my timeline theory. Either a year after GX ended, Seto Kaiba died, or lost control of Kaiba Corporation, and the person who took over ran the company into the ground. In this alternate reality, Momentum is never created, Synchro Monsters along with Turbo Duels are never created, Yusei, Jack, and Crow do not lose their parents, so they do not become orphans. Because of that, they never meet and become friends, which in turn means that they never become world-famous duelists, hence why their statues are not in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal dojo. A complete guesstimation that Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal probably takes place maybe 80 years after GX in the year 2095. Keep in mind, Kaiba Corporation is notably left off of this timeline. It would be so easy for them to just state, Kaiba Corporation invented a new way of dueling with dual gazers in this augmented reality-style dueling field, but they don't mention it for a reason. Because again, something has happened to Kaiba and his company on this timeline. That is why by the time Arc 5 takes place, there is a new company creating Solid Vision and further evolutionizing it, Kaiba's own creation, and it's not the Kaiba Corporation, it's the Leo Corporation, but we'll get more into that after we clear things up with Zexal. I know a few people right now think it's crazy for me to just make up an event based off pure speculation that changes the entire path of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime, but keep this in mind. Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, which is the show that takes place on the reality of Kaiba not being killed or losing his company, is a show the final storyline is all about changing destiny. If Yusei doesn't defeat Zone, Neo Domino City would have been destroyed, but more importantly, if Zone doesn't interfere with the current timeline, the entire world would have been destroyed 200 years down the road. Now here's a proposal. What if Yusei was unable to save humanity despite knowing the knowledge that he gained from Zone? What if in another 200 to 300 years, history repeats itself, and time travelers similar to Iliaster knew that they had to prevent Momentum from ever being created in order to prevent the world's destruction? This would lead them to go after who? Seto Kaiba and Kaiba Corporation, right? Again, there are a few different ways to consider how this singular event may have occurred, but I truly believe any way you look at it, this is what had to have happened in order to create the timeline we see in Zexal, canon to DM and GX, and the reason Synchros, Turbo Duels, and Solid Vision do not exist in Zexal. So I hope you guys are with me so far, and whether you agree or completely disagree with me, are enjoying the video. Now we get to fit in Arc 5, which honestly is a nightmare to fit into this. At least, I always thought it was. I propose that Zexal ends around the year 2097, and now we get Arc 5. We got a helpful piece of info recently that Arc 5 was once a united world, before it split into 4 dimensions. So where is Arc 5 on this timeline? If I had to choose, I would pick another 80 years or so after the Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal anime. Again, these 80 years for Zexal after GX and Arc 5 after Zexal are pure speculation. It could be 70 years, it could be 200 years, but I'm mainly picking numbers that make it impossible for previous characters to be alive on these timelines, hence why I just went with the number 80. So Arc 5 begins in 2180. Before I get into some details, here is the main reason why it's canon in my eyes. Fun fact, I've used this image in 3 of my 4 theories, but this picture is the course schedule at Leo Dual School in the standard dimension. The main 2 things to look at here is the final fusion tier and the final synchro tier. Super fusion and Fudo style theory. If this show isn't canon, again, it's hard to chalk that up to pure coincidence, especially the Fudo course. But wait, Dylan, didn't you just say Arc 5 is on the Zexal timeline? So how do they know about synchros and who this Fudo guy even is? Well, in Yu-Gi-Oh!, studying other dimensions has always been a staple of the show. We have seen it in almost all 4 shows, especially in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Keep in mind how amazing the technology is in Arc 5. When the world is divided into 4 dimensions, people can travel through them freely. Remember back in GX where they spent almost an entire season trying to get everyone back from another dimension? This is a case where the technology in Arc 5 is so advanced that while the United World existed, I propose that researchers, maybe between the Zexal and Arc 5 shows, discovered another dimension. Yes, that dimension. The saved 5Ds dimension, was able to travel to it, study solid vision and synchro monsters, and bring that research back to the timeline between Zexal and Arc 5. Leo and other scientists were able to use this research to further advance the solid vision system, giving monsters solid vision with mass. In essence, I'm proposing that he ripped off Kaiba's idea, unbeknownst to anyone, and just further enhanced it. Currently are at episode 137 of Arc 5. We don't know how the show's gonna end, so I'm gonna have to leave the timeline kind of looking something like this. There are still a few unanswered questions like why different versions of former characters appear in Arc 5, why the dimensions were divided by main summoning methods. I briefly touch on this in my why the previous protagonists are not in Arc 5 theory video, but yes, that is my theory of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime timeline. I do believe the entire timeline is canon. The second timeline option would be that the first 3 shows are canon, Zexal is its own universe, and Arc 5 is its own universe. The third option is that Zexal is canon, while Arc 5 is not canon. Again, I think it's tough to say Zexal and Arc 5 are not canon due to the images and things I pointed out earlier in the video, but hey, that's just my opinion. If you want to look in the description, image versions of these timelines can be found. If you want to download them and edit them to your heart's desire, feel free to. Whether this is exactly right or completely wrong, I do hope that this starts a good conversation about the timeline, not only because I look forward to hearing from all of you, but because I feel we do deserve some clarity from the writers about the timeline, and hope we do receive word on it in the near future. I do hope you leave all your thoughts down below. Do you agree with my points, completely disagree with them, or are just extremely, extremely confused? Maybe I'll do a part 2 of this when Arc 5 ends and the 6th show is in progress. Not going to try to aimlessly guess where the 6th show might fit into this, but hey, it is always fun to speculate. Whether you agreed with me or disagreed, I really hope you enjoyed my Yu-Gi-Oh! Timeline theory video. I hope everyone has a happy New Year's, and thank you so much for watching, and thank you for an amazing 2016. Have a great day.